conversation with Laura Elkins. I'm just so thrilled to be here and thrilled to introduce Laura Elkins. Laura Elkins is a versatile artist who works as comfortably in large-scale installations as in intimate painted portraits. She's a graduate of the University of Virginia School of Architecture, and she began painting her self-portraits as in 2000 after a move to DC brought her face to face with the White House collection of portraits of first ladies. She was recently, in February 2020, a recipient of an Escape to Create artist's residency in Seaside, Florida. And I know I'm jealous of that. And 3 of the works from this residency are hanging in the gallery right now. She also has another residency on the horizon at Vermont Studio Center that's just been postponed because of COVID. So please join me in welcoming Laura Elkins. So just about the conversation that we'll have today, I have some questions that Laura and I have talked about, but I also hope that we'll get a lot of questions from the audience. I hope that this will be a conversation with many participants. So if you have a question you want to ask, please put it in the chat, or you could use the raise hand function. I'll try to keep an eye on that and ask Yulia to keep an eye on that too. And I will, as moderator, bring people into the conversation as I see them interested in participating. So, Laura, my first
Hello.
question is, why are you dressed this way?
Oh, I know. And I'm going to pull all of this off in just a minute because these goggles fog up and I can't see anything. But this is actually a painting. And I made it soon after the pandemic started. And maybe I should stand up. It is can you see it? It's a self-portrait as coronavirus. And I created all of these coronavirus patterns, and then I've got the goggles and the mask and everything. And I can't take it anymore. Anyway, so I just wanted to wear that. And then this past week, and within the same theme, self-portrait as, I put all of this on and I made a self-portrait as, and so there's the painting of myself as coronavirus. So it's just kind of, maybe it's going to be like that recording. I am sitting in a room, pretty soon there's not going to be anything there. But so that's why I look like this. But it's easier to talk now. And thank you for having me. This is great. I'm looking forward, and I think I'm looking forward to the questions. I've gotten some, and I don't know, but I'll make up something. So
Wonderful. Well, so we've been talking about your self-portraits as, and of course, this is a particular interest of mine. I'm a researcher of portraiture, mostly in the Middle Ages, but I'm also teaching a class right now on portraiture for within the art major, on the history of portraiture. So I wondered if you could talk a little bit more about the self-portrait as. What is this?
Oh, well, I think you mentioned, I had been doing self-portraits. I've always done self-portraits, and I had been doing some when I first moved to DC. It was a way to kind of pull myself together after a very big move. And a friend invited me to the White House, and I saw the collection of the official portraits. And I thought, well, this would be a really good device for doing self-portraits because, it can get kind of old just doing the regular. I mean, it's like Rembrandt's hat. I guess it started out with that, he was always changing his hats. And so I started doing self-portraits as first ladies, and they began as fairly a few anyway, faithful interpretations um, of the originals. And and there we go. These are in the show, and these are all just a little later. But anyway, it was such a good device, and it was, as time went on, it was a way to kind of dangle between my image and the First Lady's images, and in order to actually to get at the painting, because everybody gets, I mean, and I can see why everybody gets sort of swept away with the imagery and, you know, who it is and all of that. But these are all about, it's about painting, and it's sort of an excuse to make, I hope, interesting paintings. And I like doing figurative work. So that's how it started. Does that make sense? Do you want me to discuss what's up, or?
Oh yeah, that would be great.
Okay, well, let's see. In these, I think the earliest one may be, yeah, the two on the Jackie, the selfish Jackie. That's more, I mean, straightforward. Anyway, it's based on her official portrait. And it's painted, it's actually, because somebody was asking me about my materials. We've lost the images. There they are. It's actually acrylic on a purchased fabric, pattern fabric that I thought looked kind of French. And so I did that one. And then the other one, the Mamie 9/11, that was inspired from the 9/11 attacks. And it's actually, and it is also almost directly, I mean, the form is very similar to Mamie's official portrait. But this is painted with oil and ashes. So it's a way to use materials that reflect the content. And then the one on the far right is more recent, not that recent, but it's a self as Hillary at Point Overlook in the Shenandoah. And it was done, it was part of the sort of first paintings I did plein air. And so I went up to the Shenandoah and set up on the side of the road and started painting a self-portrait as Hillary, which, you know, it sounds, oh, okay. But then the way you have to do that is that you have to lug a mirror out because it's a self-portrait. And so the first day I was painting the landscape, and people, and of course it's vertical instead of horizontal, but people come by and they look at the landscape. Oh, that's so pretty, you know, and I got a lot of feedback. And then the second day I turned around backwards, so my back was to the view. And I was painting myself in the mirror. And finally one tourist came by, I think he was from London, and he was just sort of swept away with the whole concept. So I thought, well, maybe this is something good to do. So that's how that happened. And I have continued to do all the paintings I did in Seaside were plein air. And, you know, that's several of the paintings in the exhibit. So just I'm not even looking whether there are any questions. Yeah, these are the ones. So this is my most recent alternate persona, and this is Greta Thunberg. And I was driving down to Florida for this residency, and I thought, who am I going to be? You know, because I'd said I was going to address global warming or climate change, and I thought, okay, she's kind of young, but I'll do Greta, you know. So that Greta, as, you know, representative of climate change was the persona I chose. And while I was in Seaside, and I did quite a collection. Greta paintings. The one that was featured in the exhibit on the left, this is actually the sort of entrance to the beach at Seaside, and that's a major, the triangle or the pyramid is a major, that's the gate that you enter to go to the beach. And then the smaller one on the right is, I think, Greta in the what is it? Wind and Rain, which happened a good bit, even though it was Florida. And then this one, I especially like because Greta in the Rain, and it was raining pretty hard. So I stayed at the house where I was, which they'd given me. And so I painted the portrait, and then I just stuck it under the water that was cascading off the roof of the house. And that's how all of that happened. And I sort of like that, of working with the elements. And that's one where I used the rain. So
a nice twist too on the plein air concept and tradition, which traditionally relies so much on there being good weather.
yeah, but when you're in a residency and you've got a month, what do you do?
Yeah.
And even though, it was good weather for the most part, but I sort of enjoyed the bad weather. And then it brought up these opportunities to do something like that. There's also some paintings behind me that I did. And one of them, I painted it and then just dragged it through the waves. And, I wanted to get that, let the earth that is warming, let the earth, or collaborate with the earth on these. I thought that seemed appropriate. So. Oh, yes, and that's the official portrait that I modeled that painting on. So that's interesting. Somebody's been doing a little research. So yeah, and I like that portrait. Well, I mean, who didn't like Jackie Kennedy, right? But that, I guess that's in her place in New York or something, and with the sculpture on the fireplace, which in the painting, it's just sort of a vague silhouette. And I think that painting, I think it turned out as, very evocative of what she was, or how I perceived her, I guess. Although, I don't try to create moods. I just sort of let it flow through. So, yeah. And I think that I forget that painting. I think it is more yellow than that, I think, because that's how I picked up on the yellow. But yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't seen that in a while. Oh.
These two I put on a slide together because that's how they're hanging in the gallery. And I think it's
right.
a wonderful pairing.
Yeah, it is. I think Yulia did a fab job of installing the work. I was just swept away that I was, in the front room, and, students walking by can just see everything without even coming in. So it's great to be featured like that. And then this painting was featured on the catalog and the flyer and everything. So. And I had never seen that Cindy Sherman. I didn't know what she was up to, but it's a fabulous photo.
I also put this comparison in because one of the questions students in my portraiture class had come up with had to do with Cindy Sherman. I'm going to call out Z Yi because I see her in the participants list. Z, do you want to ask your question?
Yes. So hi, Laura.
Hi.
So yeah, my question. So when we started doing portraiture in class, we were looking at comparison of like contemporary artists, and we were looking at pictures of Cindy Sherman, and we were also looking at your work on Zoom, and I kind of figured like, I wonder if she was inspired by Cindy Sherman, because Sherman, she did a lot of photographs with her in different personas and characters, and um, your work also kind of reminded me of it. So I just
Well, I
wanted.
think anytime, an artist is taking on a persona, that's
Mhm.
that's going to happen. I mean, look at Martha Wilson, if you caught her talk the other day. Um, Cindy Sherman, I mean, she was doing that. She's been doing that stuff for a long time. I didn't start doing the self-portraits until about 2000. But I don't see much of a connection other than, using my body and she uses her body because she's a photographer and I'm a painter. And the approach is just almost diametrically opposed. So I can see why, certainly I can see why somebody would ask that, but I don't think I'm influenced by it. In fact, when I got the idea, I thought, oh no, people think this is like Cindy Sherman. And I thought, no, they're paintings. And it is not, I don't, and as time goes on, they're even less alike than maybe, the original concept. So.
So, Laura, I'm really interested in the language that you use when you talk about your work, and the metaphors particularly. They're so evocative. You talk about dangling between,
Oh,
and the title of the title that you came up with for this event, Draped in Another Woman's Skin. Um, do you see connections, or how do you see these metaphors kind of playing into the work that you create, or maybe does it work the other way around? Does the work create the language that you use to talk about it?
well, I mean, because listening to Martha Wilson's presentation, I don't start with the word. I start with the image or an idea. And I think it was just over time realizing how I was doing it, because like starting with the First Ladies, which are very, very well known. I always I use myself, my body, in order to give the portraits a sense of reality. And I guess I like that struggle. Like often especially with the plein air ones, I'm often in very awkward positions, but I think that's part of it, and that's where that dangling maybe comes from. That I am, I'm creating a portrait, and then, well, with the First Ladies, it was often I paint myself as so and so, and I wouldn't try to make it look like one person or another. Well, the other advantage, or the other reason I do this, is because I like doing portraits, but by dangling between the two, it frees me from what I call the tyranny of the likeness. Is that whole thing of, oh, it's a portrait, and does it look like her? Does it look like, and that was not my point. My point was to make interesting paintings and to kind of get beyond that superficial aspect of the likeness. So the dangling with the idea, or the thought, just came over time by actually making the paintings and realizing I sort of, what is that word? I'm in between. It's not what is it? it's not the, I'm not in the bardo, but you know, you're in a sort of the third way, you know, you're not one way or another. You're in a third path following some kind of truth, I hope. So does that make sense to you, or?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Or, I mean, anyway, that's it. But it is that to avoid the tyranny of the likeness, but to create portraits that are believable and compelling. And really, it all comes down to creating interesting paintings, you know, beyond the identity and everything. So
That's it's very funny because I feel like your answer raised a lot of questions for me as a scholar of portraiture who thinks a lot about likeness and a lot about
oh,
identity.
whoops.
Um, and it's so interesting that
Oh.
that's not what you want to talk about at all. Or at least that's
I mean, I will, but that's sort of, for me,
or
it
that's
really
not
is
what
about
that's not what the
painting.
art is about. Yeah.
Yeah, it's about painting and, you know, making interesting paintings and, like, you know, pushing the portrait out in the rain, and it, you know, the Greta at Seaside, it was okay. Well, I'm going to do a landscape with a person in it. I mean, that's a very, you know, historical thing to do, but I haven't done much of that. But I thought, well, that would be interesting. So I'll try that. So it really is about exploring painting, and the self-portraits as do provide a really good device for me to explore different concepts and ideas, and even positions and places. So, and then the identity just is part of it, I guess. Because then, you know, I do
think
take
that's one of
on, you know,
the
like I become a young person, or, you know, I did a whole series of Michelle Obama, so I became a Black person, and, you know, that's kind of loaded. And but I like taking on, I guess, risky things. So
yeah, I'd love to return to that. But I want to turn to the chat because there are a couple of comments there from Brainerd Carey and Ben Hancock's.
oh,
Do either of you
a
want
couple of my
to
pals.
expand on these comments?
What can I? Are they on the chat?
Mhm. You have
Limbo. Oh, I'm in limbo. Is that? Yeah, I don't know if it's limbo exactly, but I mean that will work. It is a sort of a limbo between myself and these images. So liminal space, maybe. I don't know. Hi Ben. Hi Alan. Hi Brandon. So thanks for coming. And thanks for making suggestions. So
so you mentioned taking risks and not shying away from controversial or difficult topics. How do you navigate that territory of identity in your work?
well, you know, I do what interests me, and then there are things that just some people have never seen. They never get out of the studio, you know. So there's that. That people don't want to see it, or, you know, you can push, but no. Well, I mean, even, but I don't even think it had to do with the race issue. When I first started painting myself as Michelle Obama, a friend who has a, or had a hair salon, he was actually styling the hair of a lot of people in the White House. And so we decided we'd put up some of these paintings in his salon. And someone from the White House told him, "You've got to take these down. You know, we can't have that." So, but you know, they were very interested in controlling Michelle's image. And then, you know, I think both she and Barack got a hard time. But that was kind of a bummer. So it's like, well, you know, this is serious art. Maybe it's okay, but they're not, you know, they're not interested. So that can, you know, if it's risky, you run the risk of having it never seen, like eventually maybe. So, and most of these are on my website, so people can look at those.
We have
And then, go ahead.
Go ahead, Laura.
No, I'm just kind of rambling. So
We have a question in the chat from Alan Frame. Alan, if you want to unmute and ask your question yourself, please feel free.
Hi, Laura. Sure. How are you?
hey, Alan, how are you?
Good. So it was a comment more than a question, but I thought maybe something for you to address was the issue of power and women's roles. Because the president's wives, they are first ladies, but they're not presidents themselves, you know, so they're wives with and without power. And as a citizen in DC, you also don't have their power, but you might identify with that whole, you know, the roles that are established for them. And how you feel, you know, like that whole question, a feminist question, you know, in the middle of this, or driving that series.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting because you know, well, what do you do? I was really hoping Hillary won so I could paint my self-portrait as president. But you are sort of stuck with this kind of traditional female role. And then, you know, oh, I know, I did do a self-portrait as Kamala Harris. So we're getting closer, you know, to power. But
I mean, Greta in a way changes the dynamic completely.
In what respect?
And the power that she wields on her own terms at her age.
Oh, well, yes, definitely.
You didn't need to wait for her to become president.
No, and well, I guess she's not American, so she's not going to be president. But yeah, it's true. And then I guess, you know, there is that what kind of position did these women have? Although I tend to just, I mean, for whatever reason, there's some I like to paint more than others. I mean, I tried Barbara Bush. I could never paint Barbara Bush. And but you know, we don't look much alike, but then Michelle and I don't look much alike either. So there's a certain affinity I look for. But
what was it about Barbara Bush that was difficult?
Well, one, I just didn't like her.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think all of the, other than I did do a Melania, and I don't like her either, but I thought it was sort of okay, I'm not doing every first lady, but the current ones, you know, I will do. And I had a good idea for the Melania. Yeah, I don't know. It just didn't, Barbara Bush just didn't work. I mean, I also tried doing self-portraits as presidents, speaking of power, but they didn't work either. I just didn't like the way those turned out. I always, I remember I did paint a few, and I remember the self as Lyndon Johnson, it just looked like my brother. So that wasn't the point. And I think that's sort of when I realized it's not the likeness or who it is, but it's a device to make paintings. So there are more questions?
Yes, so I want to exercise my prerogative as moderator to ask specifically for some student questions, just to make sure we get
Sure.
a balance of voices in the conversation. So I know I've got students in the virtual room who've come up with good questions. Megan, Rachel, PJ, Stephanie. Anybody want to break in and ask a question?
Don't be shy.
Stephanie.
Hi, I just wanted to ask, what exactly drew you to these individuals? Like, what made you choose these people in particular to portray yourself as? Was it something about the portrait itself, the person, what the person?
Oops. I've lost you. Am I the only one who's lost you?
No, you muted yourself just midway through saying something, Stephanie.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying, what exactly drew you to portray yourself in regards to these particular people? Was it just the portrait that drew you and the person themselves, what the person did or is doing?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. Like in the beginning, I sort of stuck with mid-century modern. I didn't get into anybody current for various reasons, but I mean, as a child, I remember the whole Mamie Eisenhower thing and all the pink and all of that. And she worked really well for me for a while to just explore different ideas. And then Jackie Kennedy. And then when it changed, when Hillary started running for president, and so that's when I started doing self-portraits as Hillary, because I was really interested in her campaign and what she was doing. And so I started doing that, and that worked well because I think just on a practical level, our features are enough alike, and even though and our coloring, so they were sort of easy to do, and it was sort of easy to use her image with mine to create different paintings. And then, like I said, well, then, I did use Michelle Obama to address race issues. And I also used, I don't know if you remember, but when Hillary and Barack were running against each other, there was a lot of race talk at the time. And so I addressed that issue with them as well. And then, as I said, I decided to do the self as Greta to address global warming. So if I can find a person who sort of embodies what I'm trying to say, then that's good. So does that answer your question? Or is there something else?
Yes, it does. But just a little follow-up on that. Then what exactly made you want to portray yourself as Melania?
Well, she was the the first lady. And I thought, well, I'll give it a try. And I only did one, and it's a self as Melania. It's part of the series, and that might have had something to do with it. But I had all sorts of first ladies in the America Povera series, which is a series to address, poverty in America, but the, minimum wage workers and people who work at McDonald's and fast food places. And so I painted myself as first ladies in these thankless positions, and which we now call frontline workers or whatever. But so I painted myself as Melania, as I think it's at Hardee's does baking. Anyway, excuse me. She's in an apron holding a rolling pin, and looks a little aggressive, I think, but it worked. I thought it worked. So, but I haven't done any more. I haven't been inspired. I mean, I think when he first got into office, you weren't really sure about her. And it's only as time went on that you realize, oh, well, they're cut from the same cloth. So I did it before I knew very much about her. And then it's done. That's it. Haven't done any more.
Thank you.
Yulia, do you want to ask your question?
Hi, Laura.
Hello.
So we were just talking about this portrait of Maeve. And why did you use ash from 9/11 for on her body?
Well, it was such, we were sitting right here while all that was happening. We thought the plane was going into the White House. It was very, that event was very personal. Of course, in the latest, when they attacked the Capitol, they're just down the street. So if you're in Washington and anything happens here, you experience it firsthand. I like to have the materials reflect the content if possible. And I don't know how it came to me. I mean, we've got a bucket of ashes next to our fireplace all the time. And I guess I just picked that up and mixed it with the paint. And I liked the way it worked and what it said. And of course, she looks like she's been through 9/11, so I guess, the reason is how it reflects the event and how I felt about the event. So.
Do we have another student question?
No, it's actually from Laura Crow, who is a professor at UConn. So Laura, if you like to unmute yourself and ask, or I can read it if you like.
I was trying to generate some discussion in some way, but I was interested in why you chose this rather Baroque background for Jackie Kennedy. I assume it's because of the antique thing she's doing, but how hard was it to paint on cloth? How did you get it stiff enough to?
Well, it's on a stretcher, but I think, as I recall, it isn't sized because it would have interfered with the pattern. I thought the pattern looked sort of French, and it seemed, reflective of of what she was like and what she was about. So, and I like painting on patterns.
Mhm.
So it kind of introduces pattern while being abstract at the same time. So I went to some fabric place out in the suburbs and found this. So and stretched it, but it is a rather fragile painting.
Yeah, I wondered.
So
It's quite different from your other work as well. I mean, you don't generally paint on textile patterns, do you? From what I can see.
no, but I have, I guess it just depends, I paint whatever or paint on whatever whatever works. Like a lot of the paintings I did in Seaside, they're on ripped up tarp that I found because, and then because global warming and everything
Yeah.
being destroyed. Yeah, I probably have painted a good bit on, or I've created patterns. I mean, years ago I did a series, the Birth of Housework series, and they were all on ironing boards, and I either bought pattern covers or I created covers. So it's something that I like to do. It just it's always dependent on the context and my intent for the painting. So
It's quite organic. I think it's really great use of the textile within the painting. So
well, thank you. I enjoyed that, and I liked it because I mean, I like working on pattern and what it brings up. And then it's sort of interesting the way the pattern goes in and out and creates different shapes, and you're sort of able to read what's going on in the painting even though it's not there. And I like that.
yeah.
I like, sort of less is more. Is I guess that one with ashes, that's one of the more thickly painted pieces I've done, because I tend to paint thin and then maybe I'll build it up, but I like keeping the paint thin.
Okay. I also like the fact that Hillary Clinton's jacket looks like the landscape, that it blends in. I think it's a really
Somebody mentioned that, and that's just a jacket I have that's become my painting jacket. And it just worked out. I think I varied. That worked out. I don't think that was the shirt I had on. I don't remember that, but or maybe it was. Anyway, but yeah, it worked well as she is part of the landscape, that concept.
I think it's a really
So-
profound statement about her being a piece of our landscape for all of us. I think it's a great painting.
Oh, well, thank you. I like that painting.
So we have, I think, a related question from Piper Kozar-Myers. Piper, do you want to ask your question?
Hi. I was wondering how you chose the backgrounds for your paintings, because I noticed the one as Mamie and also as Jackie Kennedy are this very patterned background, whereas, like was said, for Hillary Clinton, it's more of a landscape. And I wasn't sure if there was a meaning behind those different ones.
Well, Hillary was painted plein air, and that's what I was looking at when I didn't have my back turned to the Shenandoah. But I wanted to go out and paint, and then it's beautiful up there. So that's how that background came about. Although, I mean, I guess, background, because I did paint the so-called background first, and then I painted her on top, which I think traditionally you probably don't do that. I don't know, or maybe you do. And then the Jackie and Mamie, I think I I think that may be a pattern from some official painting, a sort of pattern, but then it seemed to work because it was almost like just, ashes falling down on her, or, it worked well. And I guess her official portrait, there was, she has on a pink dress. Is that it? I've done several of her based on the official. And then with Jackie, I got interested in, I wanted to do it on a pattern, and then I chose that official painting in, her living room or wherever. And so it was just a matter of how little can I paint and, create a space, an atmosphere. So that's how those three happened. But it's all, it's all what I do. It's all very specific and particular to the work. So it's changing all the time. So I don't have this consistent body of work that, I just do the same thing over and over. Although, First Ladies, I guess, are self-portraits but they're always, it's always different, which I like, it makes it more interesting. So.
Okay, thank you.
No, well, thank you.
We have another question from Megan Starbird. Megan, you can ask your question, or I could ask it for you.
Hi, I can read mine. So my question was, what were challenges you faced while creating these series of portraits?
The challenges of painting them? Is that what?
I guess with painting them, or just process, or feelings afterwards, anything like that.
I guess the first challenge is to come up with a concept. So, like, okay, I said I'm going to paint, I'm going to respond to global warming, but what do I do, and who do I paint, and that sort of thing. So that's probably the first challenge. Then I know somebody asked something about whether I did research. There was a question from students. I got a printout, and I do research, and I guess that's part of the challenge. It's like I get an idea, and then, for instance, I might, when the National Gallery was open, I might go to the National Gallery and look at paintings, or I will look at stuff online, and if I'm going to do a particular person, I do a lot of research of existing images of that person, and or photographs, and try to get an idea of what I want to paint. I did a whole series on handguns in America, and for that one, I actually had to borrow guns to do the paintings. So that was a different kind of research, because it needed to have that sense of reality that I'm holding a handgun or whatever, or a rifle, so I had to borrow some guns from a friend of mine. And so that's the research, and I guess that's the preparation. yeah, I get an idea and then it might be a while before I actually paint because I'm, I'm reading or looking for things that will lead me in a certain direction. So,
Thank you.
well, thank you.
I think we have time for one last question. If anyone from the audience wants to ask something, just go ahead and talk. If not, I've got a question. I'll ask my question then. So Laura, I was really interested to learn that you trained as an architect, and I wondered if you could talk about kind of the journey that your career has taken from architecture to painting, and what kind of connections do you see between these two, or what kind of connections do you make between these two in your work?
Well, I think there were more connections earlier on. As far as paintings, I think one direct influence that studying architecture and I also have worked as an architect. It's the relationship of the painting to the space around it, which has led me to do a fair number of shape pieces and always thinking about, okay, how is this going to work on a wall, or and then actually coming up with paintings that are spatial and architectural. I did a big installation a couple of years ago, and it was in several sections. I mean, it was on a wall that was 100 feet long or something, and then I actually I sort of gently folded, rippled these images, and so it would fit in these spaces, and the palette was taken from the space it was in. It had a lot of masonry walls, and so I used colors that would work with that. So I think architecture has really directed me to have a spatial approach to painting, both, I guess, with the particular painting and then or the details of the painting, and then how the painting is going to relate to the space it's in, and is it framed or is it not framed? And I mean, several years ago I did a piece called Why There Are No Great Women Artists, the children's room, and it was actually our house in Louisiana, which was a painting. So, oh, well, here I've got on a painting, so this is a sculptural painting and kinetic when I move around. But that piece, it integrated painting and architecture all within this theme of family life. So projects like that, and I'd like to do more projects like that. That was really fun and really interesting, and I would like to do more, because it's sort of more, it's almost like sculpture, or it seems like when you combine painting and architecture, you get sculpture somewhere. It comes in the middle. So so does that
that's
give you
so
some
fascinating,
idea?
and it's a reminder of how much we aren't seeing when we look at work like this on a computer screen and a PowerPoint rather than in the space, sharing the space with the work. So I'll just take this opportunity to encourage everyone who can to visit the actual exhibit at Eastern.
Yes.
It's up for this week. It's coming down on Saturday, I believe. So see it this week while you can. Or take advantage of Yulia's wonderful um, uh, suggestion of a virtual tour. She did a great job with my classes, virtual
Oh,
tours.
she took me on a good virtual, because I haven't been able to get up there. So I had a really good virtual tour. But yes, always, if you have a choice between reality and you know, something on a screen, choose reality. It's really important. I mean, it just
Yes,
I don't know if I can get
if
into
it's
all
safe,
of that.
if you can
but-
do it safely.
Oh,
Yulia, do we have time for one last question? I see another
Yeah,
hand.
I think Professor Rahmanifar has a suggestion or a question. Would you like to unmute yourself if you have a question?
Hi, everyone. It's Afarine talking. And it's not a question, it's just I'm fascinated with the imagery that I see. And it's an extension of the Alan comment about the power of women roles and everything that he pointed out. And I think I have a comment about the Jackie Kennedy, and I think the comparison that I made visually between these two images that I'm seeing on the computer screen. It's quite amazing that Jackie, she's obviously, you know, she's not looking at us, she's looking away. And that's a very powerful image or kind of message that she's giving to the viewer. And I think when I look at your work, I think it's quite what's really emphasizes in your image is the eyes of the Jackie in your paintings, and which is really powerfully looking away. And I think that the most it's very ambitious, and it's very powerful kind of element that I see in that image. It's very a dreamy kind of whimsical, and really kind of takes me to a different type of world, or that you live in, and how you interpret the actual imagery of Jackie. And I just want to share that with you guys, that with everyone, especially with the students as they're looking at these two images, that the power of they don't have the power, she doesn't have the power of the presidency, but I think she's portraying that kind of message to the viewer as well, by looking away, not straight at us.
well, that was probably, now that we look at, you know, the official portrait, I mean, that Jackie's looking away, but it's very different, a very different mood. And one thing that just occurred to me, because, you know, Alan asked the question about, you know, well, and you brought it up as well, the position of women. The thing is, once I see painting as a way of having power, and as on the other hand, it's also of like, maybe that's it. It was relinquishing identity, but it gives you a certain power, and by painting, I guess, expressing myself through an image of Jackie Kennedy, it sort of gives her power as well. Not that she wasn't power, but she was still, you know, she wasn't president. But there's a power beyond our, in which we don't acknowledge. But I think art has a power that there's no way politics can have it. Yes, you know, they have the power, but if it's serious art, it is powerful, and I don't know whether it can change people or not, but it's changed me. So I guess that's enough reason to continue to do it. And I think that that maybe that's why we continue, all of us, you know, powerless people continue to paint, because it gives us a certain satisfaction. And there is power in it, you know, by controlling the images and, well, just creating the painting. It's sort of beyond a control thing. So
Yeah. Very good. Thank you.
well, thank you. That was a good question.
Well, thank you so much, Laura. And again,
Oh,
thank
well,
you to
thank you, Maeve.
Yulia. And thank you to everyone who came and asked such stimulating and interesting questions.
They were
I'm
definitely good. Sometimes beyond me, but they were good. It was a good
Thank you.
and a nice group. So
We'll do it again. I promise.
okay, no, it was good. It was good.
Okay.
Thank you, and thanks for everyone. Thanks to everyone for coming and thinking about my work. It's very gratifying. So,
Hi, Laura.
hey, Jim. I saw you earlier, and I was going to send you a message, but then I couldn't do that and pay attention at the same time. So.
Okay. Thank you. See you soon.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
Thank you.
So long.
Bye. 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 Bye.
Bye-bye.